Hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting Tuesday night patron-only Eventide stream. Hi there, I am Jason Bowman. I'm the creator of Eventide and a guy behind a little game called Pathfinder. And tonight, what I'd like to do is talk a bit about the very end of part 2 of Wolfren's Fate, the introductory adventure to Eventide. Want to maybe do a little bit of brainstorming with the folks who are here, and just kind of talk about what I'm trying to accomplish with the end of this part of the adventure. But before we get to that, I figured I'd start by talking a bit about the month ahead. We're obviously getting very close to the holidays, and that's going to lead to a few changes here, just temporarily. I'm going to be taking kind of a vacation. The end of December is typically a time off for me. I'm going to take it as a time off, not entirely from Eventide, but I am going to slow my roll a bit, focus on playing some games, recuperating, recharging the batteries, as it were. So this will be the final Tuesday Eventide stream of the year. I will probably do at least a post to the Patreon letting everybody know what's going on for the rest of the year, probably this coming weekend. But this is the last Tuesday stream. Now, I'd say Tuesday because I will actually do a stream this Saturday at 3 p.m. For people of the Lord, the high tiers. We'll get one last stream this Saturday at 3, where we're going to be looking ahead to part 3 of Wolfren's Fate, doing a little early brainstorming there, chatting a bit about what I want to accomplish with the adventure and kind of what I'm hoping to lay down. So that's going to be this Saturday. Those are the only 2 streams I'm doing this month. I will be back in January, first thing, probably there on January, 3rd, I will probably be back here. So, it'll be a couple weeks, but then we'll be right back. So, that's what's going on there. Another thing I'm super excited about, I have hired a new editor. The work on part 1 of Wolfren's Fate commenced today. I sent them all the files, and I have a signed contract, and excitingly, it has a due date of just around the end of the year. I have talked to my freelancer about, hey, if you need a little bit more time because of the holidays, we'll work with that, but I do need it by no later than the end of January, even if we do take some extra time. The freelancer is super excited and believes that she will be able to get it done in plenty of time. So we'll see. We'll see. It is a 22,000 word adventure. So I'm super excited about that. I'm not going to name the editor until the work is finished. But they are someone who has worked on Pathfinder stuff before. So this is an exciting development. They are super excited about the setting and the world and the game. And while they're not committing to anything beyond this, they want to do this and see how it goes. I am hoping that this is someone that I can use more in the future, or at least add to a stable of editors that I can call upon to get work accomplished. Because stuff like this means that we are one step closer to starting to publish some stuff. Now, my plan for that is to have part 1 go through editing. It'll then go into layout. That's something I'm going to do. I have all the layout tools. I have InDesign. I have all the art resources. I have everything I need. In fact, I have all the page treatments and everything ready. I'm just waiting for the finished text. So that is going to happen as soon as I get that text. I will be pulling that together and creating the final version of the PDF of part 1 of Wolfren's Fate. I'm going to release it to all of you before I release it to the public. By quite a bit. Because I actually intend to hold on to part 1, keep it kind of in a silo, until I also have part 2 done and part 3 is well underway. Because what I'd like to be able to do is once a month release part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. And just release the whole adventure over a 4-month period of time. But I can't do that if I'm going to need to finish parts 3 and 4 in a month. That's just not going to work. So I need to have parts 1 and 2 basically done and in the can, and I need to have part 3 almost finished, and part 4 in writing before I can commit to that schedule, because that's what it's going to take to make sure all 4 parts come out quickly. But that's for the public. All of you will be getting these as soon as they're done. Why? Because you're the patrons. You've been supporting me this whole time. You get it immediately. Based on your tier and your access and all that kind of stuff. We'll worry about that. So, expect to see the finished version of part 1 of Wolfren's Fate. I am hoping maybe as soon as February. If all goes according to plan, it should be sometime around then. I have all the art I need. I have the layout. I just need the text and the time to do it. And then, frankly, I need to, once it's done, give it another proofing pass just to make sure everything turned out the way I wanted. Okay. So that's that. That's that part. So let's get to talking about the end of part 2 of Wolfren's Fate. So part 2, the investigation. They have to find out where the ring is. They don't actually acquire it in this part. They acquire it in the next part. But this part is all about searching around, trying to locate a ring that has been missing for 300 years, and at the same time deal with some sinister forces that have been arrayed against the PCs, and they have to find a way to defeat these dastardly foes. So that is the setup, and it comes to a conclusion. You know, it's kind of an open form adventure where the players can kind of go wherever they want for several days. And then it ends with this 3-day celebration. And the way it's timing out is that it seems to me like most groups will wrap up the investigation right around the very end of the Eventide Festival. Maybe a night or two before, maybe a night after, but somewhere right around the end. They're not going to finish it on day 1. They're not going to finish it on day 2. There's a chance they could finish it on day 3 or maybe into day 4. But that's kind of it. It's looking like both of my groups are probably going to finish it after the evening of the final day of the festival. So ultimately what that means is that what is the closing moment of this part of the adventure is a little flexible. Unlike some other adventures, right? You know, you think about most adventures, and the adventure comes to an end when they get to the last bad guy and defeat him. And that's the end, right? Story done. I think sometimes the adventure can kind of carry on if, you know, they skipped part of the dungeon and they decide to go do that as well. And that's perfectly acceptable. But that's not how this is going to go, because the dungeon part of this adventure happens on the second night of the Eventide Festival. So there's that, which is a conclusion. There is the final actual day of the festival, which is what I want to talk about here today, which is kind of a harvest festival. That could be the end, or when they finally get the piece of information that they need to realize that they must leave Wormbone and head out to the town of Red Thistle to find the ring. And that occurs after they learn the name of Wolfren's brother, travel to the Teetering Tower, realize that the books are a complete mess, and instead of searching through all the books, you know, an entire 5-story bookstore, painstakingly going through it, they instead have to set up a trap and a chase to catch a gloamling that has been rearranging the books, trying to help the bookkeeper. So once they do that, then they can finally find the book, and that tells them what the ring is. So there's kind of 3 different conclusion points to this adventure. One is the conclusion of the holiday, one is the conclusion to the kind of quest itself, and one is a conclusion to this side story about the... All 3 of these are good stories, right? I think of them, finding the location of the ring is both the most important one, but also the most anticlimactic one, which is a bit of a challenge from the story perspective. Now, in the final version of Wolfren's Fate, this isn't the end of the story. This is the middle of the story, right? Wolfren's Fate as an adventure will be a 1 through 3rd or 4th level adventure, which means the whole thing is this story, and this is just the middle of it. So it's not as big of a deal in the full adventure, but in this kind of just quarter of the adventure, it does end with kind of this just like, well, sorry, you know, our princess is in another castle. You need to go somewhere else. So there's that. But there's also then there's the storyline with the Gaunts, which is in there to actually provide some satisfying payout in the middle of this event. It's a mini boss, right? And I think that's going to play out just fine. That, in fact, is kind of the thrilling conclusion to the middle of this event, or to the end of this event. And then there's the kind of quiet one, and this is the one that I'm trying to add some bang to, some fun to, and frankly lower the stakes. The stuff with the Gaunts can feel very amped, very, very important, and it is, but the adventure itself could use a little levity, because it's been kind of a tense and challenging investigation for both the groups, and they've had a good time with it, but you know, the end of that investigation isn't really a payoff. They don't find the ring. They find that the ring is located in a different town and need to go there and find the family that has it. So obviously that's a bit of a challenge. So I'm trying to make sure that this conclusion also has kind of a gratifying payoff that is a little lighter and a little bit more engaging and rewarding. So that brings me to where I'm at right now in my design process, because I'm getting real close to needing to know what this, like the two groups. I think by the time I get out of break, so my two groups, one is meeting on Thursday, that's 2 days from now. The other one is meeting on Monday, and then they're both taking a week off as well for the holidays. I'm not trying to run games, 2 days before Christmas. It's not going to happen. So obviously we're not playing then. So the first games that these groups will have will be after the holiday break. So I don't think they're going to get to the end. They're still in the sewers. So, they're not going to get to this content until January. But I want to write it now because I want to be done. Because ultimately, if everything goes well with my editor, I'd like to be able to give them part 2 in January once part 1 is finished, just to keep right on rolling, right? Which also means in January I'll finally pull the trigger and order the art. I paused with my artist because I realized I wasn't done writing the adventure, and I didn't want to write an art order and then have to come back and write a second art order. I'm just going to write one art. So let's get back to this bit that I'm working on right now, which is the final day of the Eventide festival, right? So the first night is Halloween, the second night is the Remembrance, the parade and remembrance, and then you get to this third night, and the third day is called the Pale Dawn, and this is when the darkness finally fully subsided back in history, right? So the first day of Eventide is to commemorate the 3 weeks of darkness. The second night of Eventide is to commemorate that first day when light started to come back and they realized the scope of the devastation that happened. And then Pale Dawn, the third day, is to commemorate the folks who survived and rebuilt and survived and kind of thrived after that. So Pale Dawn is a feast. This is Thanksgiving. This is a harvest festival and celebration. And so this festival happens after the conclusion of the Gaunt storyline. So no matter what, this celebration will feel like a celebration to the players as well. Like it is a party after the conclusion of their struggles against the Gaunt. Because in fact, the real story of this part of the adventure is the Gaunt and the introduction of the Dawnbringers. It's kind of a subplot. It's directly related to what's happening. But it is the thing that happens here and has resolution. So this final festival is kind of, it starts in mid-afternoon. It's a giant feast day. So there's food everywhere. There's parties. There's drinking. There is song and dance and music and games and competition. Because it's a festival. Why not? So I do view this as a chance to engage with the characters and some of their other skills or some of their other abilities, and frankly, to just give them rewards and accolades and let them kind of cut loose and have fun. I don't want there to be any fights in this. The we're off doing something fun and innocuous and then it turns into a fight. We just did that, right? We're going to go do trick-or-treating and go door to door, and then all of a sudden we get attacked by zombies. I just pulled that trick. I don't want to do it again. So I don't think this Pale Dawn Festival should have combat in it at all. I just don't think combat's on the table. So what I do think makes a lot of sense to put in here is contests and competitions that allow the characters to pit their skills against other people's skills, and possibly win prizes, or, you know, maybe I do a sort of thing where there's kind of like, there's a bunch of competitions and, you know, you can be crowned, you know, Harvest King. I don't know, right? I'm still playing around with this part of it. So that's what I want to kind of talk about here today. I've got a number of ideas for some competitions and stuff that I want to play around with. I don't know how long this is going to go, but I figured, you know, this was a fun thing to talk about here right before the holidays. So here's some of the things I am currently playing around. Okay. So first off, I think an archery contest is a no-brainer, right? Like having a contest that is break out your bows and do some archery seems obvious to me. The mechanics are already there. The way it works is already there. I do think it's the sort of thing that is already echoed in the adventure once. Right? When they go meet Rattle and Trevere, Lord Rattle and Trevere, the one of the three people who's on the seat, council seat, he dabbles with archery with them, but he throws the game. Now he's not going to be part of this competition because as one of the council members, he's not going to be part of the games. But this was already kind of in there, and this offers a way for the players to kind of have a legitimate competition against some of the other people. And just so you know, folks, I see all the ideas that are popping up in chat. I'll get to those. I want to kind of walk through some of the ones I have, and then I'll kind of engage on some of this stuff. So, archery contest, I think is a good idea. The rest of these I'm not sure. The next one that I have is a pie eating contest. I don't know why, but it seems fun to let my players engage in some sort of pie eating contest. I feel like, so the archery contest, just if I should take some notes here. The archery contest, it just uses the archery rules. Pie eating contest, boy, that feels like fort saves, right? Like fort saves, and if you fail, you become sickened, and if you get too sickened, you have to stop, right? Because you lose it, right? I think that makes sense. I'm thinking fort saves, pie eating contest, fort saves. I'm open to thoughts. So I don't know that there's much there other than make fort saves as you eat pie. But you know, that could be fun. Does occur to me though, I know I have at least one character who is a goblin with like the iron gut, that is really good at not getting sickened, so that would be a definite advantage. Like a big advantage. Not easily sickened from food. It's just a bonus to the saves, but still that would. So I also was maybe thinking about a foot race through an obstacle course that would just run like a chase, right? So instead, like you could run a foot race, as a chase and have everyone start at the same point. You're not trying to catch anyone. You're just trying to get out of the course as fast as possible. Which is interesting. I think there might be something there. I don't know, though, because if you're not working as a team, is it any fun? And I don't know the answer to that. Oh, yeah, no, yeah. Fort saves and the DC's increase with each round. You know, I could also have it be the sort of thing where, you know, it depends on the pie. Could depend on the pie. Could also depend on how many pies you've eaten. And they could try and do some trickery by swapping around pies or something. I'd love to give some of these to have a way for the players to gain an edge, or for other people to, like, soft cheating. That sort of thing. That could be fun. I don't know about the foot race. So the reason why I don't know about the foot race is I just included a chase in this adventure, and it may come right around the same time, so it may feel a little repetitive. So maybe the foot race will go. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might need to. Because there is a chase in here to catch the clone. So it does feel kind of odd to me to include another chase that is part of the festival. Yeah, I'll think about it. So I see an idea in here about lifting the biggest log. So that there could be a caber toss, right? That's basically, you know, lifting the biggest log and throwing it. I also have the idea of having a log cutting contest. So Wormbone being a big logging town, a log cutting competition is one of the things you do, right? They basically they give you a length of log and you have to cut through the middle of it, right? They give you an axe, go to town. And that could be fun. So, I feel like a log cutting competition is a great complement to the archery contest, because the log cutting competition is for melee characters who are based on strength, and the archery contest is for dex characters. Maybe that's a good way to think about it. Maybe the way to think about this is that I have 6 contests, one for each kind of ability score, right? So, you know, we got a log cutting competition for strength. We've got a archery contest for dex. We got the pie eating contests, which is con. What we would need then is an int, a wisdom, and a charisma test. And I think that might be a good way to frame this, because it gives everybody a contest that they will be good at. Just based on kind of, oh, you're making checks that are based off this ability score, right? It gives everybody something they might be able to do well. Yeah, like a singing contest. That might work, right? So I also had an endurance swimming contest in here, but I think I'm gonna move on past that one. So let me think here. What might make sense as an intelligence test? Is there, you could do like a trivia, but if it's just going to be intelligence checks, I mean, you could do the sort of thing where the intelligence test is a bunch of, you know, it is trivia of various types, and there's a bunch of different lore skills, or not necessarily lore skills, but like nature and arcana and that sort of thing. Maybe that's something, a direction you could go. Maybe, I don't know. That seems tricky. The wisdom is an interesting thing because, oh, that's interesting. I suppose there is a crafting contest, since that's based on int. You could definitely do an interesting crafting contest. That even fits well with the theme of Wormbone, right? Because it's a town filled with woodworkers and crafters. So maybe there is something there about doing, like, there's like a speed carving competition. I mean, it would require their craft skill. And if they don't have the craft skill, then they're not going to be good at it. I don't know. Maybe. Wisdom is interesting on a couple levels. Because it's based on a couple good skills. Taming an owlbear. Yeah, no, that's a good way to lose an arm. But wisdom is also will saves, and it's also perception, which is interesting. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Charisma, I do think, is easier. Some sort of performance or talent competition. That almost writes itself. Might be interesting if like you could even do something where the talent competition can be the whole group. That could be fun. You could do a scavenger hunt. That's not a bad idea. And the character with the highest perception is definitely going to be the best at that. And it could be the sort of thing where the adventure puts all of these contests in front of you. But you pick which ones you're going to engage with. And everybody gets to pick one, and the group will go and do those. But if you don't have 6 players, that means there are some of these that you're just not going to do. Because there's not enough time. So that's interesting. So the one thing I see you on the there's an idea of like doing a maze or something like that. I like some of those ideas, but I don't want to fundamentally have it be like the sort of thing where it's like, yes, and now there's a maze outside of town that appeared overnight. You know, I want to keep it relatively grounded and not have it be the sort of thing where they have to set up a huge, giant, onerous thing, right? Like an archery contest is drag out the targets and we do an archery contest. Pie eating contest is, yeah, we got some bakers who made a bunch of pies. Log cutting, again, drag out the logs, here are the axes. If there's a crafting contest or a trivia contest, that's, again, you know, scavenger hunt, a talent competition. All of these are things that kind of can happen on the fly and can happen kind of in the streets of town without having to alter anything. That is something that I do want to focus on, is making sure that all of this happens kind of within the town, which actually makes me think that the primary festival area probably needs to be outside the town proper. It's probably out in the field. That's really good. Actually, I like that a lot. So, if the primary festival... So, remember, the town is broken up into 4 kind of distinct districts. You got Black Arches, which is filled with buildings and narrow streets and overhanging eaves and is very, very cramped. You've got the Gemtree District, which is rich, wealthy, and filled with manors. You've got the Jumbles, which is kind of is a gridded street layout. It's kind of a lot of homes are clustered closer together, but it's not nearly as dense as the Black Arches district, where most of the craftsmen and merchants live. And then you got the Fields, which is outside the wall, and is much less organized. Really only has kind of one large road going through it. Other than that, it's just tents and temporary buildings or light buildings kind of all over the place. So I think most of the adventure right now has focused on Black Arches, Gemtrees, and the Jumbles. I've only had 1 or 2 things out in the fields. So having this be out in the fields, having the primary festival area be out in the fields makes an awful lot of sense. They can erect a giant tent. That's where most of the contests can happen. And, you know, there's plenty of space to do it without, you know, being like, well, where did all the buildings go? Because there is areas where there aren't buildings. Like I think the fields might also have a very large open air market which only, you know, is the sort of thing where the farmers and people from around come and set up and then go home. So when they're not there, it's just empty. So this may be the sort of thing that for the festival, that's what they use. Ah, yeah, that's the ticket. That'll work. Corn maze. I do love me a corn maze. I haven't been to a corn maze in years. So, all right, I want to go back up here because I know there were some other ideas here that I kind of scrolled past. Okay. That was more like comments about gear and rewards. That does lead me down a road for something interesting, right? So rewards for this sort of stuff should be some interesting sorts of things. I don't necessarily think any of it should be... Like, I have to be careful because I'm trying to make sure that the players don't feel like magic items are something that people just take for granted and hand out. That doesn't mean there can't be a magic item as a reward. But, like, for the archery contest, instead of, you know, giving out a magic bow or magic arrows, maybe giving out kind of a very, you know, finely crafted bow, or maybe some, you know, special tipped arrow, or, you know, there's all sorts of things that it could be, as opposed to, you know, just being a magic item. It doesn't mean that it can't be a magic item. You know, some of these contests could give alchemical items as well. Plenty of stuff like that. They could also just give money to let the players do what they want. That is one thing I'm starting to become. I got to make sure I do a balance check on here. Is to make sure that the gear and reward in this part of the adventure is balanced out, because a lot of it's been an investigation, which means they haven't been getting a lot of loot. Like, the party's been getting some coin and some odds and ends here and there, but frankly, the amount of treasure in this part of the adventure has been pretty thin thus far. Now, the Gaunt layer will be where most of the treasure drops. The Gaunts have a lot of weird old esoteric objects, and they may also get an odd relic from the Teetering Tower as a reward for taking care of the Gloamling, which has to happen at the very end of the adventure. It's the last thing you do as part of your investigation. So that'll happen. It could happen as early as the first day of Eventide, or as late as like the day after the end of the festival. So loot and reward is something that I think I need to think very carefully. Like, each one of these could come with something interesting, right? Like, so the scavenger hunt could reward almost anything. The talent competition could obviously is going to reward some sort of trophy that might also come with money. If I do a crafting contest, that could just come with a ribbon or something, but then I could have a thing that's not a prize, which is some wealthy person offers to buy the object that gets crafted. So the players might get some coin by selling the thing they made as part of the competition. Log cutting contest, that sounds like it's going to reward a nice weapon of some sort. Like, I feel like the archery contest and the log cutting contest should both reward something that is basically a combat perk, combat bonus. So that's kind of a good idea. And then I don't know what to get for the pie eating contest. Probably some alchemical pies. Alchemical pie. That's what the kids want these days. But I'm open to other ideas. Anybody got any other ideas for games or prizes? I saw some floating around in here that makes sense. Good stuff in there. So one other thing I'm hoping to do with all of it is, I forgot one other thing. I want to make sure I include some characters that the players are familiar with. I don't want the contest to just be against nobodies. And don't get me wrong, there'll be plenty of nobodies, but I want there to be a few interesting characters. And to that end, I think some of the characters that they've met at various other parts of the adventure may take part in some of the contests. To this end, I think I might have the members of Gravelin's Lot be in a bunch of the contests. I think that might be fun, is to have those kind of hapless, first level adventurers be in a bunch of these contests with them. But it might also be fun to make them kind of competent at some of these things, because they just happen to be. Like, one of them is really good at eating pies, right? Or just happens to have the right things. There could be something fun in there that the NPCs from Grablin's Lot. Grablin's Lot, by the way, is that one of the two rival adventure companies from the first part of the adventure that haven't showed up since. I don't want to use any members of the Thunder Company because they've already left town. Them leaving town is important in part 3 because I think they get to where you're going before you. Not intentionally, that's just where they were going, and they happen to be there. And when they see the player characters arrive, they decide to cause some trouble. I think that's part of the plot of part 3 of this adventure. So I don't want them to be making an appearance here. But I do kind of want Grablin's Lot to show up. I think that would be fun. And then I can have some of the other NPCs from the various locations show up. Like, Havelock could be in one of these competitions just for fun. The owner of the Wolfren's Last, the museum could be in one of them, right? I do think there's some opportunities here for some of these characters to be involved. Alternatively, some of them could be involved with running the competition. That might be interesting as well, right? If the scavenger hunt leads to a handful of places around town, the players might go to a place where they know someone and are on good terms with them and might be able to get an edge or a bonus. Not directly cheating, but just using their contacts to get an edge. That could be fun. So, yeah, there's something interesting there. Ready-made good fighting. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do here, ultimately, is I want this last bit of the adventure to feel like the party at the end of a movie, right? This was a more common thing, I feel like, in the 80s, where there were movies where it would just end and there would just be a party. Why? Who knows? Rodney Dangerfield's in it, and at the end of the movie, there's a party. It's just how it works. It's just like, oh, there's just a celebration at the end of the adventure. I want this to kind of feel like there's just a bunch of fun little moments that wrap up the adventure. I don't want it to be belabored. I don't want it to take too long. Ideally, the whole thing is half to is an hour or two of play where you are doing a bunch of these contests, and hopefully I want it to have some sort of poignant or important moment somewhere toward the end of this. Be it there's a couple different ways this could go. I'm still trying to formulate some of them, but it could be something where Greyfawn Nimblebrow's family finally seeks you out. They did show up during the parade. They show up and just, talk to you. I don't know that has any resonance, though, because Greyfawn was never much of a character. He was there for, one scene and then got killed. It is also possible that I could have Alipar Clifton come and find you after he's spent the day recuperating, right? Because you rescue him the night before. And he could, I don't know his condition yet, but maybe that's the right answer, is that he kind of snaps out of it at the end of the adventure. Whenever the end is, he kind of snaps out of it and gives some grave portent, right? That's a possibility as well, that it ends with that sort of thing. Because, right, he was captured by the Gaunts, and they were trying to corrupt him and find out what he knows. And it's possible they let something slip that's important, which will light the fire under the PCs to go get Wolfren's ring to wake Wolfren. Because that is the one thing that's lacking right now, is any sense of urgency. In the adventure itself, I don't want them to feel like if we don't go right now, we have to leave before we can't even sleep. We can't finish the party, right? But I do want them to feel like, hey, get a move on. Don't take another week off. Get your rest, get ready, and travel out in the morning, but don't feel like you can waste a ton of time. I don't know. It's a delicate balance. That's the one thing that hasn't really fully come together yet for me, is the end of this adventure. And part of that's just because the end can happen in a bunch of different ways. So maybe the correct answer is, once the Gaunts are gone, once the festival is over, once you've rescued Alipar Clifton, the actual end of this adventure is Alipar waking. Realizing that, something terrible is happening, right? Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I mean, that could be interesting, that the pie eating competition rewards some special kind of food. Doesn't necessarily have to be lembas, right? Or its equivalent. I'm going to write that down. Something hearty, something that gives you a bonus, something that's alchemical, right? Oh, that's kind of interesting. So another aspect, I was just thinking about that. That triggered a thought in my head that that part of this festival is about, it's a harvest festival, right? So this is the moment of plenty. All of the food has been picked. Everyone's larders are full. It's time to batten down for the long winter. But let's have one final hurrah. And part of the rewards here might just be special food things, right? That could be a part of all of it, right? Maybe that's the answer, is that every year they bake up a bunch of alchemical treats, basically specially created food products that are that's the reward. The reward is you get these special food things that help you out in the coming weeks, right? They're all preserved, so they'll last a few weeks and you can use them. The key here is that I'm setting the players up with something that they can use in the next part of the adventure, in their overland journey, right? So if they win the archery contest, they might gain, eagle eye cookie. I don't know, right? Something that gives them better ranged attacks, temporarily. It's just an alchemical item, right? It doesn't have to be a magic item. It can just be an alchemical item, because those alchemical items can certainly do that sort of thing. But maybe that's kind of interesting. Maybe not for all of them. But for a bunch of them, I could see something like that. That could be fun. Yeah, it gives me the opportunity to do a handful of different things, right? Some that are more kind of temporary or ephemeral, some that are a bit more permanent. Like, the archery, I love the idea of the archery contest awarding either special arrows or a special bow, or maybe both, right? I love the idea of the log cutting competition awarding a special axe or maybe special boots or something, right? But other things could award lots of stuff, right? Like the crafting contest could, award a special carving knife or something that gives a bonus on craft checks with it, right? Because it's just so well made. You can give item bonuses with items too, right? So that's the thing, right? Like an item doesn't have to be magical to give a bonus, right? So, being like, oh, here is a very nice, well-crafted tool. It is basically an improved tool, so it gives you a bonus on skill checks with that tool, right? I do think that's pretty possible, and something that I can definitely play. That's a good idea. Yeah. So I am starting to coalesce around. I do want to use this adventure as a chance to set up some rivals and develop relations. here at the end. I do think the bit with Grablin's Lot is a good idea. I want the Grablin's Lot thing to feel more like a friendly rivalry, not a mean rivalry. That's the Thunder Company. I think that might be interesting. And then also this gives me a chance to develop more friendly relationships. I think both groups are on the verge of finding out that Havanok's a part of the Dawnbreak, which will change their opinion of Havanok. So maybe there's something there. I do want them to have, like, a positive relationship with a member of the City Guard. They don't have to like all of them, and not all of them are worth liking. But Havanok is. At least in my current draft. Like, it's possible that Alipar just knows that the Gaunts have called for one of the lords of their number, right? That they're not here yet, but they're coming soon, and the players only have a limited amount of time to wake Wolfren before this entity shows up, because that is part of my plans, right? The Gaunts aren't just one creature. There's actually multiple different types of Gaunts. The players don't know this yet. No one knows this yet. But there are more types than just the basic one. So we're going to have to see how that plays. And it's possible that the conclusion of this adventure is the Gaunts have called for a more powerful ally to come here and deal with this situation, and Alipar knows it. So maybe that's the threat. To put them on a bit of a timer to conclude this adventure, to go do the thing they need to do in Red Thistle and come. Yeah, well, reputation is a thing right now, so it is a system that I've been playing around with both groups. It hasn't moved the needle much because they've just been doing this investigation, but the upcoming festival and stuff will. So there's something there. Well, that's about all I got here, folks. I want to thank you all for all the ideas here today. I saw a bunch of great ideas float around, some of which have inspired me to write down some things, and maybe we'll see how some of those appear in the adventure. But I do want to say that I appreciate it. As a reminder, this will be the last Tuesday stream until probably the 3rd. The 3rd will probably be my next Tuesday stream. That's 3 weeks from now. So we're taking 2 weeks off for the holidays. I hope you all have a great holiday, whatever holiday you celebrate. I hope you have a great one. But that will be my next Tuesday night stream. There will be one more stream for Eventide Lords and Masters, and that'll be this coming Saturday. That'll be from 3 to 4 p.m. And we're going to be talking about part 3 of the adventure. What I've got set up, what I'm thinking about, kind of walk through some of the outline bits, and just kind of talk about what's coming up in part 3, and maybe do some brainstorming on how it can all play out. So for those of you who are Lords or Masters, make sure to tune into that. That'll be this Saturday at 3 to 4 p.m. All right, folks. That's all I have today. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you all for hanging out. And I especially want to thank you all for your support. I know it's been going a little slow, but it's coming together nicely. I do feel like this world is actually going to see daylight and hit some store shelves in 2023, and I couldn't be more excited. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for your support, and we will see you next time.